Okay, so in this session, I'm going to be speaking about your CNOS tests and how to prepare for your CNOS tests and how to be successful in your CNOS test, which you are writing next week, Thursday. Correct? Okay, so first things first, we need to find out what work is actually going to be covered in the CNOS test. So I will go to my module outline document and I'll scroll and look at my module outline document to see what is the content of the test that's being written next week, Thursday. So here I can see that it's covering learning units 1 to 4. Okay, your assignment covered learning units 1 to 5, and your test counts 25%. Most of us should be almost complete with the assignment. Now, by completing the assignment, you're also preparing for the test. That is why it's important for you to have done significant work towards your assignment, right? By working on your assignment, you are actually preparing for the test as well. So it says that we are covering learning units 1 to learning unit 4, theme 1 in learning unit 4. So if I scroll down now and if I look at the learning units, it says the first learning unit covers modules 1 and module 8. Okay. And in the first learning unit, we are talking about the introduction to Windows Client Operating System, the different versions of Windows 10 applications, etc. So that's chapter 1 and chapter 8 from your textbook. Now, you'll see just now that I've got slides, or you've got slides that we have given you that you need to go through to familiarize yourself with the content. Remember that although it's a take-home test, meaning it's open book, right? You still need to know where to go and locate the information that's required for you to answer the questions, okay? By having a basic understanding of all of the work that is required, it'll be easier for you to locate answers to the questions when you need to write the test. So in Learning Unit 1, they cover Module 1 and Module 8, okay? And that's basically looking at the characteristics and features of Windows 10. Then Theme 2 covers Module 12, right? So it's Chapter 12. And this looks at installing the Windows client. So you will see in total, we're going to be doing modules 1 to 8. So in other words, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then module 12. All right. So that is how many chapters? 8 plus 12 is 8 plus chapter 12 is 9 chapters. Okay. So learning units 1 to 4 covers 9 chapters that you need to go through to prepare for the test. So installing Windows client, in other words, they are saying if you're installing Windows 10 operating system, what are the installation options that you have? Unattended, attended, automated installations, etc. And that's covered in chapter 12. Then Learning Unit 2 is going to look at Module 2, which looks at system utilities. System utilities are useful programs that we use to make changes to the operating system. Okay, so for example, the system, the device, the network, phone, personalization, apps, account, time and language. If I want to change configuration on Windows 10 operating system, I'm going to use these utilities. So next one is Module 2. Theme 2 then looks at Module 5, right? So far we've come across Module 1, Module 2, Module 5, Module 8, and Module 12. Managing disks, differentiate between the different disk technologies. Now this you have done in your assignment as well. Remember, you created a mirrored set, you created a parity set, and that was part of the storage pool that you created, okay? So that was from that chapter there. Then they speak about managing physical disks and virtual hard drives. You created additional virtual hard drives in your assignment as well. And then they speak about storage spaces. So this one here covers Module 5. Then next one, Learning Unit 3. Learning Unit 3 covers Module 3 and it's looking at user management. Remember, you created user accounts, you created group accounts, you added the users to the groups, right? So all that is covered here when we need to speak about local user accounts. We went into computer management. We spoke about creating those computer accounts, and they gave us in the assignment some of the names that we needed to create. So here you need to know about how to create the accounts and what are some of the characteristics and features of user accounts. So this one covers module 3, and then next one is security features. It's covered in module 6. Okay. Theme 2, module 6. Security features such as account policies, local policies, firewall, advanced security, etc. is covered in module 6. Then Learning Unit 4, they said Theme 1. Okay, so what is Theme 1? Module 4, networking. All right, discuss the basic components of a network, discuss the reasons for IP version 4, IP version 6, how to enable your TCP IP settings, etc. Okay, so they've stopped at Theme 1, they said. Okay, so Module 7, they said, is not going to be examined. But we can just go through it because there's preparation for your final exam as well. So far, we've come across learning modules 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They said skip 7, 8, and 12. Okay, now where would I find the notes for each of these? If I go into RC Learn, and if I click on more resources, okay, the way in which I'm going to prepare for these now is I'm going to go through, firstly, I will look at learning units. I will read through learning unit 1, 2, 3, and 4, right? Getting a broad picture, broad overview. So learning unit 1 is all about the installation of Windows 10. Okay, learning unit 2 is speaking about system utilities, managing disks and file systems. So I got a broad idea of what learning unit 2 is all about. Then learning unit 3 is speaking about user management and Windows security. And learning unit 4 is speaking about user networking and user productivity tools. So they said for the test, they're going to go up to theme 1, which is networking. Okay, so now how then I would obviously page in, because sometimes they have some links and some videos and some pictures that makes it easier for me to understand. So I'll scroll through and I look at, oh, these are the different installation types, etc. That's what they are talking about here. So that gives me a broad overview now of the content that is being covered for the test. Next thing I do is I click on more resources. From more resources, I would go. There's module 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and module 12. Okay, so I'll do modules 1 to 6, module 8, and module 12. I will go through and I'll look at the slides. So for the slides now, I'm just going to open it up from my computer. There's the slides. So I'll open up the slides and then I will briefly scan through the slides to see what is being covered in each of the different slides. So I'm going to have a look now. Where's module 1? Module 1, if I look at, okay, module objectives. I look at the objectives. Describe the role of the operating system. Select an appropriate edition of Windows 10. Install Windows 10. Select an appropriate activation method for Windows 10. Understand Windows 10 user interface, right? That's the graphic user interface that you see. And then also we've got a command line interface as well. Identify the network models available for Windows 10. Client server or peer-to-peer or Active Directory based. Okay, so that's what is being covered in Learning Unit or Module 1. Similarly, I go through the rest of the modules. Module 2, I look at the module objectives. What should I learn inside Module 2? Understand and use settings to configure Windows 10. Understand the administrative tools. Use command line administrative tools. Administrative tools are tools used to make changes to the operating system. Configure displays. If I need multiple displays, if I'm using a projector, how to do that. Manage Windows 10 optional features, manage hardware components, understand and configure power management, and use the task scheduler. You've done this task scheduler in your assignment as well. Remember, you use the task scheduler to create an automated disk defragment or something, right? That was in the assignment. So that is your task scheduler. In other words, when you want to say certain things must happen at a certain time in the future, you can automate tasks to run on your computer. Similarly, I'm going through the rest of the modules. So that was module 2. Module 3 now, what is the objectives? What do we learn about Windows 10 operating system here? Describe local user accounts and groups. Create and manage the user accounts, manage the user profiles, configure advanced authentication methods. Authentication means I'm going to type username or password, or I'm going to use my thumbprint, or I'm going to use my voice. How am I going to get authenticated? Describe Windows 10 integration with networks, right? Connecting Windows 10 to networks. What's the next one about? Module 4. There's module 4 here. Okay. Module 4, understand Windows 10 network components, IP version 4, IP version 6. Connect Windows 10 to the internet, configure wireless networks, and then configure Windows Defender firewall, right? So you can see I'm doing a quick overview to see what is being covered in each of the different modules, right? So this gives me an overall picture before I drill down into the details. I need to know what I need to know about. Okay, that's what I'm doing now. So I'm scanning through. So that was module 4. Module 5. What are they speaking about here? Describe disk technologies, partition styles, distinguish between basic, dynamic, and storage space disk types. Use disk management tools. Describe and manage physical disks. Create and manage virtual hard disks. Describe storage spaces, components such as storage pools, storage space volumes, and resilience. Describe Windows 10 supported file systems and their features, limits, and tasks. List file and folder attributes in Windows 10 file system. Understand Windows 10 file and folder permissions. Describe Windows 10 file sharing methods and monitoring. So this is all about disk technologies and storing information on the hard drives, and then storing files and sharing those files as well. That is now module 5. Module 6. This is module 6. What are the objectives? Use local security policy. Enable auditing to record security events. Configure user account control. Describe malware security features in Windows 10. Malware is malicious software, software that is meant to cause damage like viruses, worms, Trojan horses, etc. Implement data security features in Windows 10. So using what can I do to secure that computer? And then secure Windows 10 using Windows Update. So that's up to 6. Then they said module 8 and module 12. So in module 8 now, what do we need to know about here? Describe the application environment supported by Windows 10. Modify and back up the registry. The registry is the building blocks of the operating system. Okay. Then install various types of apps. Describe and implement options for app compatibility. Configure clients for virtual desktops and remote app. Okay, we are using virtual desktops. You're using it for your Azure Labs, right? And then remote app is also going to allow me to connect to a computer somewhere else and work on that. That's what we are doing for Azure Virtual Labs. Okay. Then module 12. what is Module 12 about? Module 12, it says, module objectives. Choose a method for installation. Choose the type of installation. Describe tools in Windows 10 Assessment and Deployment Kit. Perform an unattended installation of Windows 10. Prepare Windows 10 for imaging. Use DISM for imaging and use provisioning to customize a Windows 10 installation. Describe enterprise deployment tools for Windows 10. So this is all about the installation types and installation options that's available for Windows 10. Now that I have a broad idea of what is being covered, I'm going to go into the details. So I will scroll through each of the slides. After I've gone through each of the different slides, I will then go back into more resources on RC Learn, and I will go through the revision questions for each of the chapters. So here you can see you've got chapters 1 to 8, and then you've got chapter 12, the revision questions. So I'll click on the chapter question. Now you've already done some of this for your ICE activities that's due when? Tomorrow, right? So complete all of that for your ICE that's due tomorrow, okay? Friday is the day I'm going to be marking, so you need to have completed it tomorrow. Now, for the other chapters that you have not done, you will say, okay, I'm clicking on this, continue. Then I can go through them and answer them. Alternatively, I can just click on save and submit, and it will tell me you have not answered any of the questions. I'll say it's fine. Okay. Now, the purpose of me doing this is I'm reading to learn. Okay. I'm not reading to test myself. I'm reading to learn now. So I read the question and I read the answer. In the context of management features included in Windows 10, which of the following statements is true about Active Directory? It allows administrators to control authentication to Windows 10 clients without manually configuring user accounts. Okay, so that's what it allows me to do. Leo, an engineer at a construction firm, installs Windows 10 on a new laptop computer. He wants to connect 4 physical processes to the laptop to meet the high-speed processing requirements of his work. However, when he tries to connect the processes, his operating system does not support all the processes. Which of the following is most likely the reason that the operating system does not support additional processes? Windows 10 Home provides only for 1 physical processor. This was covered in what is the difference between the different editions of Windows 10. Okay, so the Home edition only covers Windows, 1 processor. Similarly, I will read through the questions in this fashion, right? And you'll see by doing this, it's actually preparing me for the test, because when I look at the past question papers, it's going to now highlight certain things. Hey, I read this question before. I can go back to my practice test, have a look at it, and then I've got an answer there. Okay, so, but if I've not gone through these things before, and for the first time I see it in the test, then I don't know where to look. Okay, but if I've seen it before, it will then trigger a memory that will say, hey, I've done this before. Okay, so this is the purpose now of reading through the questions and the answers. Lorena has multiple windows open on her desktop. She wants to minimize all the windows except for the currently active window. Which one of the features of Windows 10 should Lorena use? The shake feature. Okay. And similarly, you will go through the rest of them. And there are how many? 34 questions in chapter 1. I will, once I've completed with this one, then I will go through the next one. I will go back to more resources, and then I'll go through the next chapter. Okay? And that's the process that I'm going to be now using in order for me to familiarize myself with the content that's available and the type of questions that is asked. The other advantage of doing this is some of the times when questions are asked in the test paper, we don't have a clue as to how to answer the question. When you look at the questions and answers in this way, because some of us, the English is not the first language, okay? So we might get confused as to what is it that they're actually asking in this question, okay? By doing this now, looking at the questions, looking at the answers, and reading through all of them for a particular chapter, you know exactly what language they are using, and you know what kind of answer is expected when a question is asked in this way. Got it? Okay, so that's why it is very, very important to go through each of these different practice tests. So the number of questions seems to vary. This one, for example, is 45 questions here. Okay, so important for you to go through these at least once. If you go through it at least 3 times, then it's solid in your memory, right? So once is the bare minimum. Recommended that you go through these questions at least 3 times. Okay. Now, final part of our test preparation is to, now that you know exactly what to study, what is going to be covered in each of the different modules, you've read through the PowerPoints, you've gone through the practice questions, right? You then go and have a look at the past question papers. So there are 2 test papers that's available on your student material. So again, how to access this past question papers. We'll open up a browser, we'll go through to Rosebank College, and then we're looking for student material, okay? So I look for my student material. Oh, there's past papers. Okay, there's a link directly to past papers. So under the past papers, I simply type in this module code is CNOS, C-N-O-S, and then I can see there's some results that have been returned. The T is referring to test, the E is referring to exam, okay? So then I click on it, so I can see there's one there. I click on it, and it's going to open up my test paper for me. And this one I can see on the top right-hand corner here, that this is the 2020 paper, okay? So you're going to go through at least the 2020 and 2021 papers. So I've got it open here. There's 2020 and then 2021. Okay. So you open up both of them and then you start going through and you familiarize yourself with the questions that were asked and then also where to locate the answers. So it's a process that you are going through. Okay. So now I'm going to look now. Multiple choice questions. Select one correct answer for each of the following. In your answer booklet, write down only the number of the question and next to it the number of the correct answer. Now, please don't use the multiple choice answer question. You know, in your answer books, you've got multiple choice at the end, right? Don't use that. They say very clearly, question 1, write the number 1.1, write your answer next to it. 3, question 1.2, 4, whatever the answer is, right? So write it in your exam book. Do not go and answer it in the multiple choice answer sheet at the end of the answer booklet, right? Always answer it in your answer booklet, all right? So you write question 1 and then you write question 1.1, what is the answer? The main network protocol used to communicate between Windows 10 computers is TCP/IP. This was covered where? In Learning Unit module. If I go back, I can look at it now. This was about the networks. Networks, I think, was security is 6. Was it partitions was 5? Yes, module 4 was about networks. Okay. So you would have come across this there. All right. So now you've got your slides that are open, you've got your questions, etc. You know exactly, if you were not sure, where to go and look. Right. So here, protocol, main protocol that is used. If I scroll through and if I look at here, I'm looking for protocols. So IP version 4. There's the protocols, right? Rules for defining communication across the network defines how much of data is sent and the format of the data as it crosses the network. The protocols that are supported by Windows 10 is TCP is IP version 4, IP version 6, link layer protocols, and then LLP DP driver, right? So you can see here it's TCP IP version 4 and version 6. TCP IP, most popular networking protocol used today. Only TCP IP is included with Windows 10 for network communication. Windows 10 has the ability to use multiple network protocols. Can you see? There's the answer. All right. Similarly, I will go through the rest of the questions for the test, and then I will answer the question paper. The new web browser included with Windows 10 is called Edge. Right, there's it there, Microsoft Edge. Which protocol is used by the client for Microsoft networks, file and print sharing for Microsoft networks to communicate with each other and to share files, okay? File sharing protocol now they are speaking about, server message block, okay? Or is it FTP, which is file transfer protocol? By the client for file and printer sharing, okay, for Microsoft networks to communicate with each other and to share files. So I'll need to find out what are all of these different protocols used to do. And then I will progress. Okay, account, password length, etc. was found in the accounts chapter. Then the next one, what is the next one? 1.5, which settings category allows you to control whether apps can access your location, right? This has got to do with apps. So in the apps chapter, I'm going to look there. Then provide the name and the concept that is defined in column A. The name and concept that is defined in column A. In your answer booklet, complete column B by writing down only the question number and next to it, the concept being described. So 2.1, you'll write question 2, then 2.1, and then you'll write next to it, what is the concept being described? A Windows automated ADK tool used for creating answer files, right? So this will be covered in answer files. Automating the installation is found where? In module 12. Okay, so ADK tool for using answer files. If I go to module 12 now, right, and if I just go Control F on my keyboard, and I'm looking for answer files. Answer files. I'm searching now in my slides for answer files. Okay. So it comes up with the slide and it shows me the following information. Answer files and locations. When performing unattended installation, you can either specify the name of the answer file using the unattend, allow setup, and then it tells me more about that information. Answer file names and locations is then covered in the next one. And then Windows System Image Manager. What are the tasks that I can perform? Create or update answer files. Can you see? So now immediately I've got the tool, Windows System Image Manager, Windows SIM, right? System Image Manager can be used to do what? Create and update answer files. Okay, can you see how quickly I located the answer? Okay, and I will progress now in the same way. Next one, TCP IP command line utility that provides IP address information, right? So if I didn't know that the answer was IP config, okay, TCP IP is covered in chapter 4. So I'll go to module 4, and I'm looking for something that shows me IP information, all right? So I will scroll through now, and I'm looking for the tools now. DNS, WINS, methods of configuring IP, okay? And then methods for configuring the continuous essential networking tools, right? Shows the current IP version 4 and IP version 6 configuration. You can also display some DNS information. What is the tool? IP config. Can you see? Right? So I'm now, because I got a broad idea of what is covered in each of the chapters, I can quickly go and search and find my answers. Then next one. Minimum amount of RAM required for installing the 64-bit version of Windows, right? That should have been covered in Learning Unit 1, Module 1, okay? So I will go into Module 1 and I'll search for RAM. So I'm in Module 1, I press Control and hold it down, I press the letter F, and I'm looking for RAM, okay? And then what does this one say? Hardware requirements, okay? So system RAM, 1 gigabyte for 32-bit and 2 gigabyte for 64-bit CPU. Can you see? All right. So this is the process that I'm using now to quickly identify where to locate answers in my text. And then I'm going to continue in the same way. I'm going to name. So there's question 1, question 2 is complete. Question 3. Now we're getting to the longer type of questions. You plan to install Windows 10 Professional on 10 64-bit machines, previously running Windows 8.1. The table below indicates the minimum hardware requirements for performing this installation successfully. Okay, so they've told us that the CPU needs to be 1 gigahertz or faster. We need 2 gigs of RAM. We need 20 gigs of disk space, and we need this display adapter. Justify why you need to meet the above minimum hardware requirements to perform the installation successfully, right? So now this was covered in chapter 1 on minimum hardware requirements. So we were just there by speaking about minimum hardware requirements. So there's the hardware requirements. And they tell us here, Windows 10 is designed to look and feel the same across all devices and systems. Minimum requirements are often not enough to meet the user's needs. It's better to have slightly more resources than what the expected user needs, right? So then I will go and I look for more information about the minimum hardware requirements. But basically, you will have to say in this question, 32-bit versions, 64-bit versions, hardware requirements, upgrading. Okay, so you'll need to now do a little bit additional reading and find out hardware requirements. What are they? What is the purpose? The purpose is in order for them to run, number 1, the operating system, number 2, all of the applications that's going to be installed. Different applications need different processing power. For example, if we were using Hyper-V, and on this computer, I was going to be installing other apps, okay, or other operating systems. They would then need additional disk space. They will then need additional processing power. They will need RAM to be allocated to them. Okay, so it's not only about installing the operating system, it's thinking about what is that computer being used to do. It's being used to for office work, right? So what office apps am I using? Word, Excel, PowerPoint, etc. So this is some of the reasons that you will specify here. What's the next question? List the three most common installation methods for Windows 10. State which installation method do you prefer over others and justify your preference. Now, the installation options was covered where? In module 12, right? Installation types. Was it here? Choose installation method, right? So common installation methods is OEM, removable media, distribution share, image-based installation, right? Now you will say these are the installation methods, three of them, and then you will say I chose to use an image-based installation because I have a large number of Windows 10 computers to install. Okay, so here, for example, if I'm running Active Directory, I can use image-based installation. But if I'm just installing 10 computers and if it's on a small network, then I can use a distribution share installation. Okay. In other words, I don't have Active Directory. I'm just going to connect to one of the computers that has the CD installed. This prevents me from doing what? Going to each individual PC. So then I could install or I could share the installation files on one computer, connect from the other computers to that installation share, and then I could run the setup instead of me using um, removable media. In other words, I will need to go and insert a USB into each of the different machines to do the installation. So either one would work, but you need to now justify which method to use. How will you know? You will read through the slides and they will make recommendations here, right? So removable media is least suitable method for large volume of computers. It's suitable for small organizations that only occasionally install Windows 10. Degree of customization is low. It includes the necessary hardware drivers, but not the most up-to-date version. Windows updates and apps are not included. It typically is a manual process that is not automated. Can you see? Right? So they are giving us reasons now as to why you would use any one of these methods to do the installation. So that's covered clearly in the slides. Next one. Discuss why some device drivers signed for previous versions of Windows do not work properly with Windows 10, right? See, there have been changes that have been made in the operating system, right? In the code of the operating system. The way in which, see, what is the purpose of device drivers? Is to tell the operating system how to communicate with that device. So if it's a printer driver, the printer driver will tell the Windows 10 or Windows 8 operating system how to send jobs and to receive jobs and to update printer settings, etc. Previous versions would not, maybe there's certain features. Now this device drivers will be covered in which section? Um, so I'm looking for device drivers. So module 2 was administrative tools. So apps was covered in module 8, and then networks. Let's look at module 2. I'm looking for device driver. Okay, there's it here under advice in module 2, right? Hardware management. Windows 10 requires device drivers to manage and communicate with hardware components. Windows does not provide a list of hardware that is not compatible with Windows 10. Okay, next slide. Device drivers is software that allows Windows 10 to properly communicate with and use the functionality of a device. It acts as an intermediary between the hardware and the operating system. That means it sits in between the operating system and the hardware. It contains the instructions on how to use the full capabilities of the device properly. In some cases, a device driver is not specifically designed for hardware component that might allow the component to function. Then we can see device driver compatibility. Now there's your answer here. Some device drivers for previous versions of Windows do not work properly with Windows 10. All right. Potential compatibility issues. There's all of the reasons. The 32-bit version needs 32-bit drivers. If I'm using 64-bit, 32-bit driver is not going to work. Next one. All driver files referenced in an .inf file must be part of the driver installation package. Next one. Installers cannot display a user's interface during installation. Digital signatures are required for 64-bit drivers that run in kernel mode, and so on. So these are the reasons why device drivers will not work. Can you see how I located the answer, right? By knowing what was covered where, performing a search, and then I found the relevant information. Next question. Briefly discuss the main difference between a basic storage and a dynamic storage disk. Where would I go? To the section that speaks about disks. So basic and dynamic disks. They want me to describe the difference between them. This was covered in module. Yes, there's it here, module 6, right? So module 6 now, I'm looking for basic and dynamic disks. So I will press Control F and I'll say basic disk. And it will find now the different basic disks. There's it here, disk types. Basic disk and dynamic disk and storage spaces. Can you see how I'm quickly identifying where to find the information, right? So basic disk, there's it. A basic disk is a hard disk initialized to use basic storage technology. Basic disk can have its space organized into one or more defined areas of storage called partitions. Partition is identified by the size and the shape of the data that it holds. Partition attributes are stored in a data table on the disk that is part of MBR or GPT specifications. It's called the partition table. All right. Now let's look at what a dynamic disk is. A dynamic disk provides dynamic disk storage. It provides flexibility to logically organize disk space across one or more disk drives. On dynamic disks, blocks of space are called volumes, and the use of dynamic disk is not recommended today. The use of dynamic disk is not recommended today. Why? Because they've got storage spaces, right? And that's why we created storage spaces, okay? So now they want us to just identify the difference between basic versus dynamic disk. Okay. And that's 5 marks. There's enough information there for 5 marks. Always, when we are answering questions, look at the mark allocation. When I was marking a network architecture, for example, many people had written for a 10-mark question. For a 10-mark question, they wrote 2 or 3 points. You cannot get 10 marks if you are writing 2 or 3 points. Okay, you need to look at the mark allocation. If it's 10 marks, maybe there's 5 points that you can make, and for each of them you're going to get 2 marks per point, right? So look at the mark allocation, look at the information that's available, and then write an appropriate answer for the full mark allocation. Okay, so as we were saying now, I'm going through the past question paper, and if I've done this process at least twice, then regardless of the paper that I'm going to get for the test, I know now how to locate that information and how to then write the appropriate amount of information to answer the question fully. So discuss the main difference between basic and dynamic storage. So basic, they were said we use volumes. Sorry, in dynamic, we use volumes. In basic, they use partitions, right? And then they gave us additional information. Question 5 now says, using examples, differentiate between peer-to-peer and domain-based networks. Now, this is going to tell me networking was covered in Learning Unit 4, Module 4. So I go very quickly to 4. I'm looking for Module 4, okay? And then we're looking at peer-to-peer and domain-based networks. So peer-to-peer, I can go control an F and I can type in peer to peer. Right. It didn't like the way I typed it in, so I had to type it in properly. Okay. So there's peer-to-peer networks here. Let me look for domain. Right, remembered networks. So using examples, differentiate between peer-to-peer and domain-based networks. Okay, so it's not in this one. Network models available in Windows 10, right? Can you see? I went and I'm looking for what? The module objectives. Okay, so then I identified it is in Learning Unit 1. So now I can go and search again for domain-based networks. Networking models, right? So networking models supported is your work group and a domain model. So work group, domain-based model. Right. So now the work group model is also referred to as a peer-to-peer. There's it here, right? Peer computers. So the peer-to-peer model, they call it here what? Work group model. Okay. So there's the information about work group model. Can you see the name used is slightly different? So it is peer-to-peer. There's work group model. There's all of the relevant points here. Then domain model, there's all of the relevant points here, right? So there's your answer for peer-to-peer versus domain model. Work group versus domain model. What's the next one? 5.2. How long must the password be? When can you repeat the previously used password? Using the figure above, explain minimum password age, maximum password age, right? This was covered where? In the accounts, user accounts, which was module 4, I think. User accounts was which one? No, module 4 was networking. User accounts is user account control. This is module 6. Let's just look for if it's covered here. Password. Yeah, there's the account policies here. Enforce minimum password age, maximum password age, right? So it's all covered here. So if I scroll through, account log on, log off, log on. Okay, so I'll have to go and look for details now of the what do each of these settings means. Okay, So enforced password history means you cannot use the passwords that you've used before. Maximum password age means for how long can the password be valid? In other words, is it valid for 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, etc.? Minimum password age. I must use the new password for at least 1 week or 2 weeks before I change the password, right? This is there because people might change the password to something else and change it back to the old password. Next one, password length refers to how many characters must be used. So a minimum password length can be, for example, it must be 8 characters. It must be 10 characters. Okay? And then use password using reversible encryption. All right? So here you need to just go and do a little bit additional reading in the textbook as to what do each of these settings means. Alternatively, you can look at your virtual computers in the help file. It will be there as well. Next question. Right, last question. 6.1, using suitable examples, differentiate between DHCP and DNS. This was covered where? In the TCP IP networking section, which was module 4. We just did it just now. So I can search here for DNS. Is it here? DNS, and then you'll come across DHCP, right? We've done this in detail in the networking section as well, okay? So there's the difference between DNS and DHCP. Remember to write these answers using your own words. You need to paraphrase. Do not copy and paste, okay? You will be marked down or you will be penalized for plagiarism. Then next question, describe the ping common utility used to troubleshoot TCP IP and provide an example of where the utility is used. Ping is used to test connectivity between different computers. Remember in the assignment we used it, right? Can you see how important it was for you to do the assignment? Because it's helping you to prepare for the test. So you used it in the assignment. You will find the ping command here again. Let's just have a look at it in module 4. Okay, module 4, I'm looking for ping. So let's type here ping. And there's ping. Ping verifies connectivity to a destination by sending an IMP request packet. All that simply means is it's used to test connectivity between one computer and another computer. Example would be if I'm trying to see if I can connect to a computer at IP address 10.10.10.10, I will use the command ping the IP address to see if I can communicate with that device. So that's the ping utility. And then you've used it in your assignment. You can use that example from your assignment as well. Now, this covers how to prepare for your test. And can you see if you have not done this process and you are faced with your question paper, it makes it difficult to answer, right? But if you've gone through this process and you've done it a number of times, it makes any paper easy to answer. You can do this now for your test, and then also the same strategy you can use for your final exam. Okay? So I'll stop recording this and I'll save it to the YouTube channel.